What's up, ladies and gents? I've got more exciting Payday related news for you today. It's been an incredible few weeks for Starbreeze Studios as yet another deal has been sealed, and there's more Payday related content coming your way very soon. Of course, I'm talking about Payday Crime War, the mobile game which saw a brief soft release in certain regions back in August 2019, only to find the game pulled 3 months later as then publisher NBC Universal stepped away from the mobile industry. With the direction Starbreeze seemed to be heading at the time, operating at reduced capacity and financially struggling, there simply weren't enough resources available to handle the Crime War situation. For those of you Payday historians, will remember it was around that time Payday 2 was re-entering development and becoming the main focus again as Crime War fell into obscurity. However, instead of cancelling the title, which for all intents and purposes was in a releasable state, the official statement was they were waiting for a suitable publishing partner to make the game happen long term. As we know, Starbreeze are financially in a much better place now, and have been in active talks for well over a year with potential publishers for both the much anticipated Payday 3 and the oft forgotten Payday Crime War. Well, with the Koch Media deal already in place, it was only a matter of time before we'd hear something new regarding the much sidelined mobile game. Now it was the acquisitions team's primary focus. And here it is. A publisher has been secured and a tentative release date for the beta is set for within 2021, so expect it around Q4. Since so many of you seem to not know much about this game and its brief history as a publicly playable release, the first section of the video will be dedicated to everything we know about it from that last release. The second part will be focusing on the new publishing agreement and what it means for the game moving forward, as well as a little look at the new partner Starbreeze are leaving in charge of their intellectual property before the obviously monumental launch of Payday 3. History time. Payday Crime War, first announced by Starbreeze in 2017, was designed and marketed as a free-to-play, competitive 4v4 first-person shooter made for mobile devices and set within the world of Payday. It would pit a team of uniquely designed cops against the four heisters we were most familiar with, Hoxton, Dallas, Wolf, and Chains, in settings taken from Payday 2 but redesigned to function within the framework of an objective-based arcade shooter. As was popular at the time, this was essentially a class-based shooter, with the heisters and SWAT enforcers coming with their own ultimate abilities and passives ranging from dozer suits to sentry turrets or ECM jammers, and I imagine these will be expanded upon in the eventual release. Other class-based elements included armor, which effectively functioned as non-regenerating health, and ground movement speed. The gunplay was simplistic and arcadey, but with many weapons available within Payday-style loadouts. Objectives generally functioned as attack and defense choke points, but with a Payday-themed twist, as safes acted as your traditional flags, which had to be drilled by the heisters and protected by the cops. Conceptually, the game sounds incredible to a PvP lover such as myself, but as Payday is known for its cooperative mechanics, there were questions to be asked regarding who this game was actually for. Was it just a cash grab, given the success of other mobile shooters like PUBG or Call of Duty at the time? I'd argue that Starbreeze's stubborn refusal to let the game die is a suggestion that's a little more than that. However, that could just be sunk cost talking. Irrespective, the game was and should be a conceptual treasure trove. It's a very popular IP with an inbuilt fanbase and some cool and unique elements that can draw from the literal vaults of its parent franchise. There's a ton of scope for future updates with the game, as there are dozens of heisters and additional cop designs that could be thrown into the mix. In terms of monetization, Payday, as we know, is so well suited to cosmetic microtransactions. Whether you like it or not, that's the better evil than the alternative, that being gameplay interactive microtransactions. Sadly, on its first launch, this potential wasn't properly embraced, and by all accounts, the safe-based microtransactions meant we not only had loot boxes and randomized monetization, but also something on the fringe of pay-to-win, with weapons being included in the purchasable loot. The system could have been a lot worse, as safes were unlockable just by playing the game, and this was a game that could be played as much as you wanted, with no ridiculous token or pay-to-play mechanics. However, you could simply buy safes with real-world cash, or speed up the rate at which you can unlock your daily safes, allowing paid players to upgrade their weapons and player stats faster than the competition. Of course, it always had the excuse of everything's available to free-to-play players, but we all know that comes with a time-sensitive disadvantage. Understandably, this wasn't overly well received, and I don't personally believe will fly at all 3 years on from that initial beta. As I say, the game is ripe for cool cosmetic skins and masks for both the cops and heisters. Making these directly purchasable and non-gameplay intrusive is how a free-to-play company can do this right. And later on, I'll be discussing the new publisher's history with monetization to get to the bottom of how I think they'll act with Crime War. Just know for now, I'm happy to see they'll be taking their time with relaunching the game and won't simply be sending it out in the same exact state as last time. Whether you enjoyed the core gameplay loop or not, there's more that needs to be considered. Another common issue noted by reviews was the game's balance issues. Seemingly there was a pay-to-win style meta already emerging which should not be tolerated. Also, it's a somewhat isometric shooter, with both sides having access to different tools and abilities, so it's essential that these classes are impeccably balanced across the two teams, or the entire premise of the game breaks down and only one side gets to have any fun. Spawns also present an issue that I hope will be better balanced than during the last launch. From a more functional standpoint, the game had poor and imbalanced matchmaking, which may well have been a product of the small player base or somewhat staggered release, but cannot be the case next time around. Additionally, the controls were apparently extremely clunky. For what it's worth, I'm not really sure what clean touchscreen controls feel like. Give me a controller or keyboard any day, but clearly there are some mobile experts out there who expected more. In any case, I anticipate a more experienced mobile developer will clean up most of these issues, as it's essential and FPS feels good to handle at all times. Overall, the game received a lukewarm response last run out, so in many ways this feels like a shot at redemption for Crime War. With this new publisher taking over all development duties moving forward, it's an unmissable opportunity in my opinion to make a vastly superior game at the second attempt, and cement Payday as a franchise that has room to grow beyond being a fun with friends co-op shooter, and build up some player-based trust before the make or break Payday 3 launch. I'm hopeful, but we'll need to see a lot more and actually get my hands on the game before making any bold predictions. Personally, I'm quite excited for it and do think that the concept is incredible. In fact, it's the sort of thing I would have loved to have access to on console or PC, and may well be a testing ground for some PvP functionality in the upcoming Payday 3. There's no way Payday 3 will drop its co-op PvE identity, but just imagine how cool gang feuds would be as an added mode if Payday 3 goes for more of this living the heister fantasy moniker we keep hearing. Plenty of food for thought here. So then, Crime War history explained, onto the news of this new publisher agreement. Announced on the 14th of April, Starbreeze have confirmed the game will indeed return to mobile storefronts in that same free-to-play capacity, now developed and published by PopReach, an FTP mobile game specialist. This deal sees PopReach paying Starbreeze $250,000 for the rights to use its Payday game assets and for access to the complete game source code. Obviously, this isn't a huge money acquisition, and more so typifies the modern Starbreeze strategy. They will be gaining sizable sums in royalties for whatever the game is earning, but will not need to put any resources towards that from now on, allowing for full, unified company focus on the production of Payday 3. And we can see this in action with the 5 remaining Starbreeze employed Crime War devs transferring over to work on Payday 3 from here on in. It signals the company's priorities moving forwards, but also how Payday as an IP is something that they clearly believe has room to grow, relying on the popularity of their characters and game concepts, and handing over all creative freedom to their partners. This comes as a massive departure from the Starbreeze we saw under Bo Anderson's leadership. The core criticism levied on his philosophy as CEO was that he wanted control over every element of each process. That's why we saw the team develop a new engine, a new VR device, and acquire every potentially profitable project idea it could with Payday 2's profits, stretching what was initially an indie-sized company to the brink. Diseconomies of scale for my more economically minded viewers. This is nothing like what we see today. Starbreeze are now offloading all additional baggage and focusing on what made the company so profitable in the first place, the next game in the Payday series. That isn't to say Crime War has just been discarded, I'd say quite the opposite. It's essential the game is at least competently managed by the new devs, which is why they've chosen to put it in the hands of a more experienced mobile development team, a form of delegation which they seem to always refuse to do in the past. With PopReach now solely responsible for the development of the game, they will also be the ones incurring all future costs and will dictate the pricing strategies for the game. I have confidence they'll do a better job of this than Overkill initially did, but also from a more cynical perspective, I think this is a masterstroke by Starbreeze. You see, if the game is monetized aggressively, it's lost at least a degree of association with the Starbreeze brand, even if it still dents the wider Payday IP. Let's hope this isn't the case either way, but I do think it's telling that Starbreeze were willing to let the game go for what amounts to 2.2 million Swedish krona, or $250,000 as I mentioned before, when the sunk development costs are approximately 70 million SEK. I'd assume the royalties are going to be fairly high, and all parties are predicting this to be a highly profitable game. As ever, something I mentioned earlier in this video, free-to-play games carry a risk when it comes to their business models. Crime War fell into some of these traps early on in the beta, but given all the additional development time before the relaunch, these issues should be ironed out for the less forgiving 2021 market. I think it's worth doing a little research on PopReach's history with this. First up, they don't make a lot of competitive games, let alone first-person shooters. Things like Smurfs Village will only get you so far when making a comparison. However, that game's been around for over 10 years, so they're clearly doing something right. Their PvP strategy game War of Nations is mainly criticised for its bugs, but I have seen the dev team routinely responding to those criticisms and have never seen anyone complaining about the monetization. In general, they seem to be specialists on the old spend to save time system, but do not tend to imbalance the game for the sake of a short-term money-making strategy. I don't love this, but it's a hell of a lot better than the alternative, and the longevity of the game is a noble goal. Honestly, I sincerely hope the team gets this right, and although they're inexperienced with FPSs, we'll be able to turn what is already a fun shell of a game into a mobile experience befitting a title like Payday 2. Overall, I'm cautiously optimistic. The mobile game industry is so predatory, but this company doesn't seem to scream the usual greed associated with it, but we can't say much for certain until the game's launch in late 2021. In the meantime, if you're a fan of the series, just be grateful that Overkill are being allowed to prioritise properly this time. Their full focus is going towards updates to Payday 2 and the development of Payday 3, and for that, we can all be grateful. As ever, thank you very much to my Mean Infamy patrons and above. If you want to join that infamous club to see yourself in the credits or get early exclusive access to my videos, including the story videos, check out my Patreon link below. Remember that Discord is open to all if you crave some more Payday discussion. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you all very soon for the next one.